Bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
All right, you ready? Right, brace yourself, because I'm aiming right at the microphone. Ready?
Yeah. Ooh, that sounded good.
Yeah.
Ready? There we go. I did mine.
That sounded like a fake crack.
What do you got? Oh, we'll talk about that later. Jesus.
Really? You don't want to do it now? Okay, we'll
No.
keep people in suspense.
Exactly. So, freaking ticks. I will talk about my experience, but we need to do our diligence on ticks right now. It's absolutely insane in some of the areas. I don't know, Tad, if you dealt with this, but I had an insane amount where I was.
None at all.
I don't understand what the different areas of how it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's in part being half Sicilian, and they just don't like the Italians.
Huh. Interesting. I mean, my dad's part Italian. He's probably like 75% Italian, and then my mom's more of the Polish area. Well, yeah. So
yeah. Well, it is that time of year where I've been kind of focusing on prepping for something else, but yeah, I got to get my gear prepped and ready for tick season in the Catskills and elsewhere. I generally don't find a lot of ticks when I hike in the Catskills, particularly when you're, doing mountain hiking and you're at the higher elevations. And I don't know if that's just my weird personal experience or there's some truth to ticks not habitating in the higher elevations. But I know down here in the Gunks and elsewhere, yes, ticks everywhere.
But I mean, we both do our, like I said, diligence on this. Like I spray I even, you're not supposed to do it. You're supposed to spray permethrin on your clothes and stuff like that, and then wash it. But I seriously spray it right before I leave from the trailhead because I do not want this shit on me. I do not want to get Lyme disease. There's horrors of Lyme disease. I know my friends of something, but
have you ever had Lyme's disease? You ever tested positive? Really? Wow. No, I have.
What was your experience? What was like what's the problem?
It was complete hell.
So yeah, that's that's what I've heard.
The first time I got it, I'm pretty sure I was riding a 3-seater, a triple mountain bike I had made with my 2 daughters and I. We were riding in the Gunks, and a few days after our ride, I noticed I was getting like this irritation on my one calf. And when I reached down to touch it, it felt different. And I pulled up my pant leg and you could see the bullseye. It had all the distinct symptomology. Never found the tick, but I went in, got the blood test. They put me on, the doxycycline. And I took a course of doxy. The test came back positive, and when I was younger at the time, I was, physically a lot more fit than I am now. And it definitely threw me for a loop for a while. And then a few years ago, I had grown a beard, and it's kind of a gross story, and so I been out doing a lot of hiking. It was in like July or August, the height of humidity. And a few days, after I was last out in the woods, I was going to trim this beard that had accumulated on my face, and I hit the tick.
No way.
That was fucking disgusting. It was
on
right
your
under my
face?
It was right under my chin. Yeah.
Wow, that's disgusting as heck.
Yeah. Just let's edit this out because people won't like me anymore. They'll call me like tick guy or something.
No, this will be good to once again. You need to. This is huge.
Yeah. So I went out. I got you go in and insist on getting doxy, and you eat them like they're jelly beans, and it was I didn't even bother getting tested that time because I didn't care. But within a couple of weeks, I felt like I was 100% again. But it's certainly not something to mess around with. You got to check yourself out after you hike. And frankly, I recommend changing your clothes before you really hop in your car to ride home. Because if you have a bunch, in your clothes, they're going to get out and they'll be in your vehicle. So yeah, I'm a proponent of changing in the parking lot and, putting your hiking gear in a duffel bag in the back of your vehicle. And then when I get home, I put my clothes right in the dryer and dry them to kill anything. Yeah. So my wife is like on high tick alert during tick season with me. So
speaking of that, like this might be a little bit too much TMI. So this weekend we went to my sister's house, cooked for my mom's breakfast for my mom for Mother's Day. And when we came home, we were setting out. That was
this past weekend, Mother's Day? Yeah. Oh, no wonder why my wife is so pissed at me.
Oh, you missed it.
Yeah.
So we did that. And when we came back, we were getting, dressed for hiking because we were going to go up to a waterfall and stuff. And my wife looked, I know this once again, TMI, but this is a no holds bar. I was almost naked and she's like, what is that? And then she
didn't know what it is. And she's been married to you how long?
Oh, Jesus. That was horrible. Jesus. Outrageous. Wow. Jesus.
And continuing with tonight's podcast.
Continuing. Oh man. So she looks and she's just like, what is that? And she goes in and it's a tick. And I haven't been anywhere.
That's how small it is?
Yeah. Jesus. All right. Enough with the jokes, Tad. Enough. As Alex would say, enough. So and it was a tick. And I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Once again, like, my sister has 3 dogs. But like, I hadn't been like anywhere to where this would be like, once again, up towards the crotchal region. That's what I say.
Towards the what region? What was that?
Crotchal region. The crotch region.
Yeah. Some of our listeners are like doing replay now.
Yeah.
But the decent listeners just hit fast forward. They're like 2 minutes down.
Yeah.
Till we move on. So
it was sort of latched. I got to take some tweezers and pull it off. It wasn't fully in there. And I was just like, when this hits, it's like, what the fuck? Like, this is like crazy to think about. Cause once again, I'm 42 years old. To think about this as a kid, we went in creeks, we played in leads, we jumped in everything. We had no either clue about this or we didn't fear it. And now it's a huge threat.
Yeah, no, I've known some people that have really been messed up by it to the point where they're disabled. They can't go to work. They're in so much pain and discomfort. And then you get people that live, with these symptoms, these severe Lyme's disease related symptoms for quite a while before there's the diagnosis, because initially they either didn't see or did not have any of the telltale initial symptoms. And so it doesn't get diagnosed until it's a really debilitating factor in their life, all from this little thing that's like the size of a pencil lead.
Yeah. And once again, a lot of our friends, that we know, I know that our friend Mo was affected by this, and it derailed him for a long time. And it was they had no clue what it was. They were just like, what the hell? And Mo was finally just like, how about we check for Lyme's disease? And it was. And I'm so glad he's back out in the trails and he's ripping it up, doing his thing. But it just scares the living shit out of me. Like, Lyme disease can't be just, like something that hits your bones or something. It's all over the goddamn place.
Yeah. Well, and Mo is one of these guys, you'll see him post on Instagram when he does his annual springtime dousing or spraying of his clothes with permethrin. And you see other people that do it. I did one set of gear 2 weeks ago before I went out hiking. But when I come back from my trip, I'm going to definitely finish off everything else so it's ready to go for the season.
Yeah. I hate to start this off on a bad note, but fuck, I just hate ticks. So when we talk about ticks, we talk about bushwhacking.
Which do you have more fear of, ticks or snakes?
Definitely ticks. No way.
Yeah.
The snakes I can kind of dodge, but the ticks can go underneath. And
Yeah, you don't know maybe until a week later.
yeah, armpits, like God. All right, disgusting. All right, so the polls are in. Tad, I told people I would do this on social media about doing a bushwhacking episode, and they want us to do it. 95% compared to 5. I'm guessing you're the 5% that voted against doing it.
How many people voted? 10? Let's see the real numbers. I want to know the real numbers.
Good point. All right. Let me get this back up.
I want to recount.
You want to recount?
Yeah.
All right, let's not talk about this crap. All right, so where was it?
You said 95%, but you don't even have any like polling data here. I think this is just completely fake. This is completely fake. I want a congressional investigation of this.
Oh, here it is. Okay. So 23 responses.
Wow, 23 responses.
96% yes, 4% no.
And how many were no's? Well, I can do the math.
You do the math. You're the sophisticated one.
I got it going. You said 23. That's not that many.
Not of 1,000 people, but still.
So of the 23, one person voted no.
That was you.
I wonder who the fuck that was.
Because you didn't want to do it. The people want to hear about it. I understand.
How do you teach somebody how to bushwhack on a podcast?
The right gear. They want to know gear. I mean,
you can go out with all the right gear or all the wrong gear. It doesn't really qualify you for a good Catskill bushwhacker or not. Right?
Correct.
I mean, you see people will have a compass. They don't have a clue how to use it.
This is why, I love.
I could teach you in a parking lot how to use your compass.
True.
It just takes a couple minutes. And it's like I said, it's best to do it like in a parking lot, a football field, someplace where it's wide open, particularly where there's some easy to identify landmarks that are also on the map you're using. And then you're good to go. I taught one guy in the Denning parking lot how to use a compass.
That's a fantastic spot.
Yeah. And then I had him navigate Lone and Rocky.
Nice. See, that's phenomenal. So we can do it. We can do it, Ted.
What we should do is we should take a couple listeners out in the field and then like the next Tuesday, we'll do the podcast with them. Let's go. If we're going to do it, we need to go big. We're not going to do it half-ass. Not like that tick that was on your ass. What'd you call that again?
A mass ass? What? So I didn't have a name for it. So the thing is, it's what sucks is I have limited weekend days. I work Saturdays. My Sundays, well, the Saturdays are, I don't have any hockey anymore. So I would love to do something like a navigation, stuff like that. I'm not, once again, I'm not like Trailbound project that teaches navigation and stuff. I would say I know my shit of the Catskills to where I don't need a compass. But if it comes in use, that would be fantastic. It would be an emergency situation. But I know the arms and so much of the Catskills. So do you, Dad. I know you do. But I love to have that knowledge of having a map and compass and just being like, one of the times I went up to Cheryl and I was just like, listen, I'm going to learn this from where I live right now that I need to go 70 degrees to get to a certain spot and I'm going to nail it. And I did. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool that you can learn from home and you don't need to be on the spot to learn where you need to go from point A to point B. That you can set the degrees like you do. You do most of the time before we go, like when we went up to Cheryl and North Dome, you were just like, okay, I forgot, I think it was like 200 and something degrees, 265 degrees, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I've also done that hike quite a few times, but coming off of Cheryl, there's a little variation that you call them. What do you call them? Arms or shoulders? arms. Yeah, I mean this one kind of branches off in almost 3 directions. So it's a fun hike.
But yeah, so that would be fun. Once again, I gotta stop. I gotta stop working on the weekends, and you gotta start giving me your salary, and we can all do this stuff.
Yeah, I'm ready to retire.
So bushwhack episode, let's do it. So
okay,
Tad, I had this memory. This is why I love Facebook, because I had this memory that came up on Facebook. Twin Mountain 2019. Do you remember this? Do you have any clue of what happened?
That was the Via Ferrata.
Yes. Wow. Wasn't that insane?
We've talked about this before, the Via Ferrata.
Yes, but I like to bring this up every so often because it was crazy.
It's because you have that guilty conscience.
Because you think I did it?
Yes, I think
I had the skill to do that?
Yeah, because somebody went up during the week. It wasn't a job done on the weekend.
True.
I think it was done on a Tuesday, which is your day off, right? There was some gear left nearby that they traced. It was called Ozark Trails. Have you ever heard of Ozark Trails? The brand name Ozark Trails.
Well done. True. Yes, Walmart.
Yeah, and that's Walmart. That's Walmart stuff. You've been known to frequent Walmart multiple days a week. There was some the stagger of the tire treads leaving the parking lot were from a Tesla. So
come on, I get the cheapest tires.
All the evidence points to you. So so tell the audience, those who don't remember what happened on Twin in 2019, what we're talking about.
In 2019, a huge part of the west side of Twin Mountain, it was a big, huge kind of like dead tree, came down, kind of like fell. And that was kind of like your route up Twin that kind of like guided you up. You go up on the eastern side of Indian Head and you have like kind of like the roots and stuff of that. Just imagine if that fell down, you would have a huge kind of, I wouldn't say like rock climbing experience, but it's very similar.
But you say that there was a big tree on the east side of Indian Head in 2016 or 2017? There was a tree over there.
Maybe I thought I did that before that. I did that in 2016. So maybe I didn't.
Yeah. You might not remember it, but I remember there being a tree in that notch. Okay. So bring us back to 2019, the western side of Twin.
Yeah,
what happened?
So that tree fell down in the winter. And then I don't know how long until this was done by social media, but all of a sudden somebody goes up to the west side of Twin Mountain and there are metal rungs installed.
The rebar that they use when they pour concrete.
Yep. Rebar. I would say about 6 or 7.
Yeah. They were drilled into the rock.
Yep. Going up this little part of Twin, and there was an insane hiatus. I don't know if this went on Instagram. I wasn't on Instagram at the time, but I was on Facebook, and there was just an insane hiatus saying, once again, this is not the Catskills. What's going to happen in the winter when this is all ice? Because this side is just absolutely insane. Who did this? Like, nobody ever admitted to who did it. The DEC never admitted it. Nobody else admitted it. And then we talk, I don't know, I forgot how long later, but like a week later, they were gone. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing they were gone. So somebody went up there with a Sawzall.
Yeah, they were gone so fast, I never even saw them.
Right? I didn't either. I went up and I got there. I was like, what the I went up that next Tuesday. I think the next Tuesday or something like that. Maybe Tuesday after that. And they were gone. And I was just like, wow, this was a little crazy. So nobody, it's the biggest mystery in the Catskills right now. Like, who did this?
Yeah, it could be the biggest mystery in the Catskills.
Do you have a clue of who did this? Come on.
Well, I already said my suspicion is that you did it. That's why
I don't have
this fixation.
The skill to do that. Come on.
Well, that's what your wife says, but I think she underestimates you. So somebody took this down. Somebody took it upon themselves to take it down. My question is, was it a good idea in the first place to install those metal rungs on the west side of Twin. And if it was a good idea to do it, why hasn't the DEC either reinstalled them or just put a wooden ladder up over there?
Outside. Yeah, it was such a big mystery at the time, and they rerouted it. And I got to admit, the reroute is absolutely phenomenal. It still gives you that sense of kind of scrambling and stuff like that, and mystery. It was like when me and my friend Travis went up there. We went up there, like I think it was 2 weeks after they were installed or were removed by who knows who removed them.
Yeah, good cover, Stosh. Okay.
And I have a video of him, that area. You're like, well, what the hell am I going to do right here? He jumped down like, 8 to 10 feet and slid amongst like the snow and ice. And it was just one of those like, oh shit, like this is what we have to face. And they did a really good job of rerouting that area to make it still feel Devil's Pathish.
Yeah. But before the rerouting, which I think happened sometime within the last year or so, I think there was just a lot of human-induced erosion and devegetation of that rock. The moss was stripped off of it, roots were stripped off of it, just really defaced it, if you will, because it was hard getting up, hard getting down that section. And the metal rungs certainly facilitated people going up and down that ledge without damaging the vegetation, the natural growth. So I think those rungs were a good idea, in my opinion. And now I question why on Slide Mountain, just downhill of the wooden steps that they have, why haven't they installed more? Because people now are like rerouting around those two rock ledges. And so they're stripping the moss, the vegetation, the tree roots, et cetera, off of those rock faces. The area of defacing is getting broader and broader, each and every year. So shouldn't they put something up down there? And why haven't they? And if they do put something up, who's going to take it down?
But do you think that the rungs, like in the winter, that would be atrocious? It would just go over ice and it would be complete sheer of ice.
Well, that would happen if there was no ice or no rungs. You would still be iced up. We have air, just like Cornell Crack and other areas get iced up in the winter. And that's why you have trail crampons or something more beefier than trail crampons to get up and down those areas. I mean, you can look at something like Westkill. There's sections of Westkill in the winter that can be pretty technical to go up or down. But if you have the right gear, it makes it easier. Particularly in the winter, there's some spots that if you don't have the right traction equipment on, or you don't have the right agility to use that traction equipment, having a rope with you helps you a lot. So it's all about being prepared. My thing is that with so much foot traffic on these trails, they do need to do things to preserve them. Why is there somebody ripping off these metal rungs because it takes away from their experience? Why aren't they going out and moving those rocks, those big rocks that they've put in the mud holes out there?
Talking about like the summits or like Pico and Notch, stuff like that?
Yeah, in those areas, they put all those rocks in there to give you something to walk on as you're going up and down the trail. Why don't they move those then? It's the same thing. You're putting something, I'm not going to say artificial in the trail, but you're changing the trail. If you want a more natural experience, walk through the middle of the mud. Don't put big boulders there for people to step on as they go through.
Wow, Tad, everybody's changing their thoughts about your hiking experience. You want metal rungs. You don't want rocks in the middle to make the.
No, I do. If you're on trail, to a certain extent, they ought to harden the trail to sustain the foot traffic that's on it. Now, I'm not a proponent of bringing in rock that isn't native to the area. I mean, I think there's enough natural rock out there that they can, drag it into or do whatever to harden up these trails. And if they have to use metal rungs or wooden ladders in spots, given the traffic and the vertical nature of the terrain that's being covered, I think they should be able to do that without somebody taking it into their own hands and removing those things. But then if you really want to get me going, tell me I can't hike double top.
God damn. We've already talked about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, where there is no trail, you should be able to go and bushwhack and hike it. But on the trail, the trail's the trail. They can fortify it. So long as they don't pave it. When they start paving the trails, then
you don't want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not native material. So
true.
Okay. True. So that's my story.
Yeah. It was a crazy time and the hiking experience of the past, once again, 6 years now. It's crazy. Especially in my hiking experience, I've never seen something like that in the Catskills. You only see that. God, I don't even see that up in the Whites or the Adirondacks. I mean, there's no metal rungs in there. That's like you said, the Via Ferrata, maybe. So, whatever. All right, move on to the next. Hot off the press. Heard this today. Sunday, May 11th, 10:22 p.m. Greene County 911 requested forest ranger assistance with a hiker who suffered a significant leg injury in Catskill Wild Forest on May 12th, 1:24 a.m. 3 hours later from when the call was initiated, a team of rescuers from Haines Falls Fire Department and their Tannersville Rescue reached a 26-year-old from Sherburne, which is 20 minutes north of me. The patient was nearly 1,000 feet off a trail on a steep, slippery terrain. Ranger Dawson determined the safest way to rescue the hiker was with support from the New York State Police Aviation. At first light, Rangers Fox and Peterson stabilized the injury and kept the patient warm for overnight. At 7:29 a.m., New York State Police pilots Bernardi and Leader flew in with Forest Ranger crew boss Cowart to the scenes. Rangers Fox, Francesca, and Martin prepared the hiker to the ground, and Ranger Cowart successfully hoisted the subject in the helicopter. The pilots flew into the landing zone where crews transferred the med flight transport to Albany Medical Center. Resources were clear at 11:53 a.m. So, upon seeing this, I see the initial report and photos. And they say Catskill Wild Forest. This looks like Catskill High Peak to me.
Oh, yeah. So where do you think he was? Hurricane Ledge?
I think he was going down the southern side of Hurricane Ledge. And unfortunately, probably suffered some, different aspect of the area. But, once again.
Was it a compound fracture? Can you tell from anything you see there?
From what I see, it just has a person packed in a litter with the forest rangers. I see Martin off to the left, who's been on the show previously. So Martin, I could tell by the awesome mustache that he has. So, but Fox, I've met Fox before. Fox is really cool. She was part of our little search and rescue mission that we had one time. But that's my guess. Did you see that email?
I don't remember seeing the email. I did look at the story.
Okay. So. Let me forward it to you because this is the Rangers report. So, but yeah, this was I can't tell, once again, it's tough to tell where they could have been, but the Catskill Wild Forest is very vast. We have Catskill Round Top, and then we're going off into the Catskill Ravine and stuff like that. So who knows? They could have been on a long path and gone down, but I don't see any significant within the pictures. I don't see any significant, terrain that shows me that they were in the Wildcat, the Hyler Ravine, or the Santa Cruz Ravine. This looks more of a Catskill High Peak, southern facing ravine area, not a ravine going down to the kind of like the steep section of the snowmobile trail. So forward it to you right now. Let's see what you think.
Yeah. Well, I think what's noteworthy about this is it looks like the call came in after 10 o'clock p.m. on Sunday, which seems pretty late in the day for somebody calling in.
Did you say late in the day, late in the night?
Yeah, it's after sunset. So you got to wonder when this happened. Was it the guy who fell that called in? Was it that he was hiking with somebody? I mean, if you were hiking with somebody and you fell before sunset and you're where Stosh thinks you were, somewhere along or at the foot of Hurricane Ledge, I mean, 3 hours is enough time for somebody to get back to the parking area to a car and get out of there. So it's interesting that the call came in as late as it did. Took the Rangers 3 hours to get there, which, in terms of mobilizing, hiking in, that seems reasonable. So they get there at 1:24 a.m. Monday morning, and they spend the next 6 hours with that guy in place, start a fire to keep him warm. It has been chilly at night. But this just goes to show you that even when the Rangers get to you quickly, you may not be getting out that same day or within a few hours. Sometimes you got to wait until daybreak, or maybe sometimes it'll be when the weather breaks. So be prepared.
Yeah, right. And it's just it's one of those instances, of course, a leg injury that, a slip and fall could have twisted it in the wrong way. I think I chatted about that last week, that my friend John suffered a little fall that happened, and it wasn't significant, but luckily we got back to the area, the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, stuff happens unexpectedly, man. I've had my share of close calls out there. Fortunately, they've been close calls and nothing more.
Yeah. So moving on, looks like the DEC announces Long Path Trail project to improve public safety, enhance access to the Catskill Forest Preserve. So this is a DEC, what is it called? What are those called? Oh my God. I totally went off on this.
Yeah, well, I'm not helping you because now I'm looking at the photos that were included in the Greene County Wilderness Rescue.
What do you think?
I'm looking at the helicopter in the field, and I want to know where that is. Right? The implication is they spent the night in place to wait until daybreak when they could bring the helicopter in. But this helicopter, this is like a big grassy field that they show the helicopter.
That could have been over towards Elko Park or something like that.
Well, but then under each one of these, it says Hunter Overnight Rescue. And the article says the Catskill Wild Forest. I don't know.
It's tough, Elko Park has a bunch of open areas, they could have went up to, there's that one place with the,
yeah. What I think that when they have something like this, they need to call us to see if one of us wants to go out and actually interview people on the scene while they're doing the rescue, and just not haul the person out until we've gone in and gotten our story.
True. Make sure
and I don't think that's too much to ask. I mean, they can bring a little morphine to help the injured person, wait for us to show up. But inquiring minds, we want to know. All I know is I'm proud of our Rangers because they're able to go in and do this stuff, and nobody gets hurt when they get there. They pull this off successfully, and kudos to them for taking their job seriously.
Correct.
So support your local DEC Rangers.
Correct.
Okay, next story.
So once again, the DEC announces Long Path Trail project to improve the public safety and enhance access to the Catskill Forest Preserve. So, of course, the Long Path, 357 miles, originates from New York City all the way to above Albany and such like that. So they are looking to construct 8.35 miles of new trails that will connect existing trail networks on the nearby public and private lands to exclude out road walking. So the Long Path has a lot of recreational opportunities in the Verneuil Kill Falls region. Once constructed, this will link existing forest preserve trails in the Sundown Wild Forest to the trail system in the adjacent Verneuil Kill Forest and the popular mountain bike system of the Lippen Park of the Walrusing area. So once again, this is an actually big improvement. I'm going to post the Sundown Wild Forest Unit Management Plan. This is a lot to read. It's over 100 pages, and I skimmed through it just to see. I saw a lot of the maps and stuff. Once again, the trail goes far right to go a lot of road. Did I send you this, Tad? I'm going to send you this right now.
I just pulled it up. Not the unit management plan, but the DEC page on this. And I find these unit management plans very interesting, particularly the older ones.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and they give some of the interesting history that's not as well known these days, or not as widely reported these days. But you go into these older unit management plans, and you'll find these accounts that they give. So I think the problem with the Long Path is what they're trying to eliminate here, and that's these long road sections that you have to go on. So
I look at this and I see a signature of 10/8/19. It was a little while ago. It was 6 years ago. Well, 5 years ago, but still, you look at the unit management plan, and it shows you once again where the Long Path exists right now and where they look to improve it. Actually, sorry, Tad, that this wasn't 100 pages, 349 pages.
Oh, well.
So have fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to go all the way down to where I can see the maps. They have a bunch of set up maps. Jesus, I'm not even on it. 60 something. Good Lord. Keep going. We're at 115, 116, 130. I'm very sorry for this, everyone. But okay. So we look to it swerves over to the west, and it continues up. It shows a bunch of areas that will consist of the Long Path, that proposed sites. It has the information is absolutely insane with details that'll show a significant terrain increase, a significant terrain decrease, and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure her name was Pine. She does all this stuff, and she did an absolute incredible detail with this. It takes a while to propose trail. Looks like goes a little bit to the west of the cliffs of the gunks and stuff like that, and then connects with the Norman or the Vorna Kill snowmobile trail. So once again, this is a great improvement. Once again, a Long Path. We're seeing a lot of improvements on the Long Path north to south. Basically, I know that our friend Steve Steigard and a bunch of people have donated their time to improve this Long Path area, especially to the south, where we have a lot of private land and we have a lot of mud areas, as we saw with Kim Levinsky detailed with her experiences up north with the rain and stuff like that she just battled beavers and water dams and stuff like that. So it's a great improvement. Glad they're putting money into the Long Path. Let's, see some more people like Chicken Fat. Is that his name, right?
Yeah. Chris LeBlanc.
He was so much fun.
Yeah.
Chicken Fat. Let's have a party in a freaking porta john.
Yeah. Chris LeBlanc, who will mix multiple bags of potato chips and other snacks together and then crush them all up. Right. Yeah. He's a pretty funny guy. So
let's look into this a little bit more, and we'll dig deep now, because next episode.
Gotcha.
I'm very sorry I didn't send you that beforehand. Because
That's okay. I don't need to be, on the front line with any of this information. It's not like I need to know what I'm talking about when I'm on the podcast.
Jesus Christ.
Because people, it's like I'm just the background noise in their car on the ride to their Saturday or Sunday hike. It's not like Tom Hoos pays attention to any of this.
I was going to say, who does Tom Hoos pays attention to?
Tom who?
Or Lisa Morales, Quazotic.
Yeah, she posted her picture. I think it was her that posted her picture of her dousing her gear for tick season. So,
well, I don't know. I don't know who she pays attention to. We'll get her, or I'll get her thoughts. So, also, what happened down in Breakneck Ridge? Hikers suffered fracture from fallen tree. So high winds, of course, added to this significant injury. And we always think about this when we're hiking with the high winds, or even just like low winds. You hear those trees clanking and such like that, and you always think about this. And hold on, let me pull this up once again. I'm all over the place. May 3rd, 2:30 p.m. New York State Forest Rangers responded to assist of staff at Office Parks Recreation Historic Preserve with an unconscious hiker about a mile and a half from the Breakneck Ridge Trail at the Hudson Highlands Park area. He was hit by a fallen tree. A tree removal project had been taking place on the Breakneck Corridor on the west side of Route 9D, just north of Breakneck Tunnel. This work was in preparation for the construction of the Hudson Highlands Ford Trails connector that which is beginning later this spring. The injured hiker's partner called 911. 28-year-old from Manhattan was knocked unconscious, was suffering from a skull fracture and a broken leg. Also, I would think that's a little bit more significant than a skull fracture. But with someone, Rangers rescued from the state parks, New York State Police, and the Cold Spring, Phillipstown, and the Wappingers fire departments packaged the subject. It regained consciousness and later wheeled litter to transport to an ambulance. Rescue was completed at about 6 p.m. So not bad. 4.5 hours or 3.5 hours. Not bad.
Yeah. So my initial question is, I thought this trail was closed.
Oh,
was he on the closed trail? Because remember a few weeks ago, everybody was posting their, I hiked the Breakneck Ridge Trail for the last time for 2 years because it's closing on April such and such or May such and such. And then we have this story about a 28-year-old person from Manhattan. Tree falls on him, breaks his head open, fractured skull, fractured leg. I think the fractured skull is a very serious injury, so serious this guy appears to have been unconscious for quite a while. And they talk about this tree removal. So is this tree that fell on him a tree that was, part of this tree removal program? I mean, there's a few unanswered questions here. Certainly, we hope this guy has a full recovery without any permanency, but was he hiking on a closed trail that he shouldn't have been on? And what role, if any, did this tree removal activity play in a particular tree falling on him? But so
interesting.
Sad and interesting. So,
but we haven't heard anything about this like a little bit later on, so he's probably okay. So if you listen to the podcast, get a hold of us and talk about your experience, or if you know him,
have him connect with us. Maybe we'll get him on. Maybe we'll get this fellow on.
That'd be pretty cool to hear about a rescue experience.
Or even if you were in the Catskill Wild Forest this past weekend and you got hauled away in a helicopter after spending the night with the Rangers. If you know that person, or if you are that person, reach out to Stosh and we'll make you famous by getting in on our world-renowned podcast that you're all voting for or should be voting for on the chronograms. Okay.
Correct. So last set of information, I wanted to sort of save this last for the little on the dark side. So Leo DeFore finally found on Allen Mountain after almost 6 months. So Leo DeFore was was pronounced missing back in November of 2024, and unfortunately, due to the trail conditions and such, 59 forest rangers tried to search for him up on the Allen Mountain, which is a very remote area in the Adirondack Park. One of the craziest trails that people say that to get up to, because it's 8 miles up and then 8 miles back. So he was pronounced missing, and that he couldn't find them, and they called off the mission after, I think it was like 9 days, and he has been found now. His body was found by local people that were hiking over there, and New York State Police, New York State forest rangers located Leo and hauled him out by helicopter. So not a lot of details has been released on where he was found. My friend said he was found on the Mount Adams Trail, which is nowhere near Mount Allen. So definitely got to look into that. And, it was once again one of those times when you're just like, damn, the mountains can take everything over. Really can.
Yeah. Well, hiking in the winter, especially up north like that, is serious business.
Yeah. And especially hiking solo up north in these kind of conditions, kind of like a little scares me. Of course, just has that effect of basically like, I'm going to be alone. Can I do a 16-mile hike by myself, especially in these conditions, breaking trail? So once again, ask yourself, is the summit worth it? Is this mountain to check off my list worth it? My answer is no, absolutely not. There's far more out there for you to get and to go after than just another high peak to cross off your list. And, our respect to the family of Leo, and to Leo, of course, because it is one of those heartbreaking moments that I cannot even imagine.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, kind of bittersweet Mother's Day.
Right.
You find out that your son his remains have been found. So,
all right.
Sad outcome.
Yeah, thank you to the forest rangers and all who were involved in that. If you're listening, that was a tough situation. So, all right. So let's actually get on to the great stuff. Tad is yawning. He's getting sick and tired of this.
Yeah, it's this beverage I'm drinking.
What is? Oh, yeah. Hold on. We'll get a quick that. Thank you to the monthly supporters, Jeff Jott, Vicky Ferrer, Mikey S., John Comiskey, Summit Seekers, Dennis Sid Radio, Betsy A., Denise W., Tom H., Vanessa C., and Eric Rosario. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Also, big thank you to the awesome sponsor to the show, Outdoor Chronicles Photography. So capture your love story against breathtaking backdrops with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize your moments amidst the stunning landscapes of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft timeless images that reflect unique bond in nature's grandeur. Embark on an unforgettable photographic journey with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. Also, discover the wilderness with Trailbound Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education programs offer unparalleled outdoor experiences. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills and explore stunning trails and connect with nature. Start your journey today with Trailbound Project and unlock the wonders of the great outdoors. They have a lot of stuff going on with the spring and summer coming along. They have navigational skills, wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder. Check them out on their line. We'll have them in the show notes. So, who's outdoors? So, of course, we named this after the great Tom Hoos, who is always going outdoors. So mention the podcast on one of your hikes through social media, and we'll chat about it on the show. Tag us by typing at ITL Catskill Mountain Podcast, MTN Podcast on your post. So Pink Pony was trail building with Duchess Land Conservancy. They took a secret trail to our work site and admired the falls and got working with a future trail. When it's open, she will connect the popular local hike. Got to see the beautiful Pink Lady slipper. Never seen that before. Is that a plan, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I would think so.
I would hope so.
Or it might be something that Merrill came out with this season for, hiking.
Or she went afterwards and went to a Pink Lady slipper area. I don't know. The Hudson Valley's wild down there.
I think so. Well, this is Dutchess County. Is it still the Hudson Valley? Maybe. I think she's kind of a little east of the Hudson Valley where she is. But
he could have went afterwards. All right. So, Tracy, thank you. Tracy, thank you once again for doing your volunteer work. That's absolutely phenomenal. Hook us up when you get this trail going because it's absolutely fantastic. So also Tom Hoos went to Catskill Falls and explored the area with Bastion Falls and stuff like that. He got, once again, I went out to the waterfalls this weekend and he got high flowing waterfalls and just absolutely was phenomenal. He also went to the Peekamoose Valley area, which is exploded with waterfalls. If you look at the trail maps and if you look at the elevation gains in the area, it just has waterfalls everywhere, especially when there's high water flow. And it's just an absolutely phenomenal area to explore. Just even by car and a little walk goes a far way once again.
Oh, I don't know about that. The DEC took away all the parking along that corridor. They put up the Jersey barriers, all the no parking sign. There was a lot of pull-offs in the old days.
Run up, take some pictures, run down.
You and I maybe could, but you look at, somebody who's got some level of a disability or elderly, I think 5, 6, 10 years ago, they could drive along that road and pull off and, really from their car or a few feet from it, take in those waterfalls. But Tom did post a number of photos that he took, and they're all spectacular. You really get the impression that you're standing there. I think one of them that he did was in black and white, kind of almost shows a silhouette of him and all the mist and spray around him. Kind of a powerful image of Catskill Falls. So check out Tom's posts on Instagram.
Definitely. And once again, he is a great supporter of the show, and then we appreciate you following the show and chatting about the show, having a fun time in the Catskills area because it's never ending. That place is just absolutely phenomenal. And speaking of, we're going to go outside the Catskills right now. So Jeff Jotz and his dog Orla went and backpacked the Dolly Salt Wilderness in the Virginia. Looks like a fascinating place. Very similar to Catskills. I looked at terrain and stuff like that. A lot of areas was like glacial. I would say what is it called? Like glacial clearance, where it just wiped the vegetation clean. Mm-hmm. And he had some absolutely phenomenal pictures with Orla sitting on ledges overlooking the eastern part of the West Virginia area. And he's brought my attention. He's got my attention with the Dolly Sods. Did you see his pictures?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was some nice stuff. Looked like he had a great time. And the one thing about, I've hiked with Jeff one time, and I've seen a lot of his stuff on Insta. And he surely knows his plants. So if you want to learn something, you want to learn something about plants, check out his posts or hit him up for a hike.
So what you're saying is not going hiking with you and Jeff and Danny, because one of you would be fascinated by plants, and then the other will be fascinated by geology and morphology and the geomorphology and stuff. So you're just basically going to be a 14-hour day.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is, Danny knows more than just geomorphology. He knows his plants and his fauna and his trees. And, he's pretty well-rounded in all those areas. So he and I hiked this weekend, as you're about to hear.
So why doesn't Danny come back on the show? Why won't he come back on the show?
Oh, I think he's got his own podcast now. It's called the Danny and Tad Great Hiking Series. Catskill Unlimited. It's called Outside the Line.
Ooh,
bushwhacking, extreme bushwhacking in the Catskills.
Catskill Unlimited. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Jesus.
We're still working on the title and negotiating with our sponsors, but we're looking to roll out any weekend now with new episodes. None of this Borscht Belt stuff either.
I'm looking forward to it. So buy us a hard cider, the sports show. If you think we're doing a good job, buy us a hard cider /coffee on buymeacoffee.com. You can look it up, look at Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast, Buy Me a Coffee. Also, rate the show on any of your platforms. Just do whatever, 5 stars or more if you can. Also vote for us on the Chronogrammies. We have, I'm pretty sure when this airs,
It'll be over.
So we'll see.
Yeah. So if you didn't vote, shame on you. If you're driving to the Catskills or anywhere to go hiking and listening to the podcast and you didn't vote for us, you need to turn around and go home and spend the rest of your day inside writing us an apology for not voting.
Correct. So what are you drinking, Tad?
I am almost down to my last sip of my last can of the 1911 original hard cider, which makes me wonder why it is you drink hard cider. Because
you don't like it?
It's not that I don't like it. It's just there's not a lot of dynamic here. It's just like cider that's almost gone bad. It's not sour, right? But it's just like a cider. It's not as sweet though. This one, it has this sweetness scale, and on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 6, this is a 1. It doesn't tell you how many grams of sugar. Right? Wouldn't want anything sweeter than this. But it's interesting that it doesn't tell you the calories or the alcohol by volume.
Oh, wow, it doesn't?
No, but if this was it tells you the alcohol by volume, it's 5.5, but it doesn't tell you the calories or the sugar content, which I think is interesting because they tell you that on a sweetness scale, it's a 1. But as we learned from Kyle last episode, more important is the grams of sugar in the can. This also appears from the reading on it. It adds carbonation to it. So
yeah,
it's okay. Look, I mean, it's certainly drinkable. It's very smooth and drinkable. There's nothing unappealing about it. But compared to a beer, it's kind of like the water of alcoholic beverages.
So it sounds like you need to get yourself a Hudson North hard cider.
Yeah, well, I'll do that. I'll buy my next 4-pack of ciders is going to be a Hudson North.
Big Apple.
The Big Apple? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so this packs a punch once again, 8.2 ABV.
That's the big boy.
But it has no sugar and everything, and it tastes so good.
Because it's all alcohol.
It's very good. So Kyle was once again on our last episode, and he did a fantastic job once again. I love their slogans and stuff like that. Go north and happy trails. Like, they're built for hiking, and we learned about that, of course, on our last episode, and it was just a good time, and I support them.
So before you put the can down, I want you to press on the can and ask yourself, could you put that can in your backpack when you went for a hike and not worry about it like cutting open and leaking inside of your pack?
Absolutely.
You think it's sturdy enough?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Oh, okay.
And it's small. It's it's like a smaller like beer can. It's not like it's one of the tall ones that'll take up a lot of space.
Is it 12, 16, or 14 ounces?
It looks like 12.
Okay.
Yeah, 12. 12 fluid ounces.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So previous hikes, let me go first because mine's short and sweet. So I went to Huntersfield Falls in Prattsville, new trail, that's only been developed within the past 5 months. It's right beside the Pratt Rock area. It's got a very weird kind of like entrance area. It's very wet, muddy, like boggy stuff like that. And you have 2 signs on the side that show DEC property, and it looks like somebody's mowed it, which somebody does mow it. The parking area, I parked at the the Methodist church down the area, but you can park at the Pratt Rock thing and just walk along the Pratt Rock area and just walk along the road and the sidewalk to this parking area. And there's a kiosk. You can see it among the distance. Just stay on the DEC property. And then once we hit the DEC property, you hit the trail and it's muddy, it's boggy, and it's fucking tick infested. Within the first 5 minutes, we found at least 5 to 10 ticks on us.
Wow.
Tall grass area, and it's just infested with ticks. And Jessica and I were going to think about bringing our dog with us, but we are very, very grateful that we didn't, because this would have just been absolutely anxiety-driven, horrible hike that we would have stopped within the first 5 to 10 minutes. I hate to bring negative, but it's totally worth it if you are diligent and you check yourself every, I know it sounds horrible, but it'd be like 500 feet. You'll flick them off. There'll be nothing there. I had shorts on. I had my permethrin, but I just flick them off. They'd be crawling. Jessica had some on her yoga pants, and we would flick them off. Once you get past this tall grass area, it's fine. Smooth sailing, and you get 3 sets of waterfalls, one with 25 feet, one with about 30, 40 feet, and then another one that's like 5 or 10 feet. And you get to sit there and just enjoy the absolute enormous flow and sound of the waterfalls. And I was just blown away. It was a beautiful time. We sat down, we got subs from our local place called Daddy Al's. I had like a buffalo cheddar jack sub. It's phenomenal. We sat there, enjoyed the sound. We enjoyed our time with the good, awesome flow of the wind from the power of the waterfalls, the mist and stuff. It blew away the bugs, so we didn't have any bug problems. So that was phenomenal. And then we just continued on, and we're just like, okay, so from now we will kind of like step forward with our foot sideways to get down this tall grass so we can stay away from the ticks. Still didn't stop. They were all over us. And at the end, it was probably 20 to 30 ticks that we flicked off of us. And at the end of the hike, this was the best part. Okay, so
don't leave out the best parts, Doc.
It was so funny. We laughed our asses off. So there was people behind us, and when we were done, we didn't really strip naked, but we stripped down to search ourselves. We looked, armpits, undercarriage, stuff like that. Then these people came out, and we were like so concerned. We're like, hey, there was a lot of ticks on here. Did you look? And they're like, oh yeah, we did our thing. And the guys looks at me, and my car is filled with stickers from New Hampshire, Banff, Canada, Sequoia National Park, Zion, stuff like that. This guy's like, well, that's the threat that comes with the hiking, man. You got to be diligent on this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. My car is parked next to you, and I have more stickers on my car that says, I've hiked in the Catskills and the areas surrounding areas. He's like, yeah, maybe next time carry a little bit more. I'm just like, dude, I sprayed permethrin, a toxic chemical, on me, and it didn't do shit. So we laughed. We had a good laugh about that.
Yeah, well, he didn't see the stickers. He was just looking and seeing the Tesla.
And
that's what he was speaking to. That's what he was talking about.
And that's what he was just like, you goddamn idiot.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whatever, But the funny thing is, if we're in Prattsville, population, like 400, you think?
No, just 12 people.
12.
Yeah. Just enough to get together a jury.
We Jesus. We come out of the parking area, and there's these people standing in the middle of the road filming this guy on a not a motorbike, like a bicycle, a 10-speed doing mountain biking. And we're like, what the freaking hell is this guy doing? And then once again, they'll run across the street when somebody comes, and then they'll go back and film, and they'll come back and film. So I'm just like, is this the guy that you talked about, the lynching guys that did the backpacking trip?
Could be. I mean, that's, they go out. There's a lot of cycle packing.
Yep.
Yeah, that goes out that way. It's popular. It's getting growing in popularity. I know some people that are out there right now bike packing here and there. So
I went back, I circled back, and I asked him if he was Tyler from Lynchon Backpacking Tour, and he wasn't. It wasn't. It was some other guy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, that was a little awkward. And then we went up into 23C. You ever been up through that road through Jewett and Prattsville?
Yeah, I have.
We went to, let me look it up, a little garden place because Jessica wanted to check out this little garden center. And it was just, I love 23C because it goes up at top of the mountains between Jewett and Prattsville. And it just, if you don't want to hike and you just want to experience the mountains and see like Hockett, Rusk, Hunter, North Dome, Sherrill, Bear Pen, Fly, stuff like that, I would suggest taking this little route that dissects between Wyndham and Hunter. And it just gives you that beautiful mountaintop view of that area. Hold on, I got Gardens by Trista. That's where we went to, right outside of Jewett. So phenomenal time, beautiful day. We experienced it all, except for extreme hiking like you did. So go ahead. What do you got?
Oh, what do I have? Well, so Danny Davis has been back in town for a while, and we finally hooked up. And we met up at Bread Alone. And we had been talking about doing a particular hike for quite some time. It's one of these areas in the Catskill that Danny Davis has not been to before, which is unusual because he's been all over between work and recreational hiking. And we met up at Bread Alone for a little pre-hike meet and greet and talk about it. And I tried to talk him into do something else because I thought the water levels were going to be too high. And he reassured me that they weren't going to be too high to do what we did. So we did some blue lining off of the Esopus, and it was extraordinary. We parked our cars, we hiked up the Esopus for a way, and then after we hit a few waterfalls, we branched uphill to the ridge, hiked along the ridge for a few miles, and then dipped down to try to pick up the headwaters of this one stream that Davis had not hiked up or down before. And he described it as being one of the more populated waterfalls or streams with waterfalls that he's been up or down in his time in the Catskills. So it was very enjoyable. We had a lot of like our own personal entourage of bugs was with us. The weather was perfect. The water was flowing really, really strong. And we encountered more waterfalls than I can remember. So overall, it was a total of 5.6 miles, about 1,800 vertical feet of climbing through some rather wet and luscious Catskill terrain. And with that, I turn it over to Stosh to see if he has any questions.
So,
and he's looking at me rather baffled. It's as if he didn't listen to anything I was saying.
Dude,
might be because he stepped out of the room because his dog was going nuts. But all right. So fire away. I gave a brief description, but I didn't tell him where we were, and I'm not going to tell you on air because there was a lot of great places for like swimming along.
Yeah, I was going to say creek crossings. How did you come across that? A lot of people like to.
You didn't look at my post. I did
look at your post. So like you took all your gear off and kind of put up your
barefooted.
How was it? What was the water temperature like?
It was cold. It was fast flowing. I used that tree to just hold on to in the event because you never know when you're going to like step into something really, really deep and slippery and, lose your footing. So I was using the fallen tree across the river to help stabilize myself. I even go so far, I don't know if you can tell from the photo, but I like unclip my backpack so I can get it off quickly if I need to.
So good.
Yeah, try to exercise all those precautions. So we had a couple significant river crossings, if you will, on that hike. Creek, I think it was river action in my opinion. No, you don't think so? But
river is more of a soapiest lower part of Fleshman's and stuff like that, where it's got to be more than 15 feet across.
Okay, I'm going to say this was more than 15 feet.
Really? No.
Yeah,
you got to record that then.
Yeah. So
now that with my question about like creek crossings and river crossings is the afterwards. How do you do you have like a dry towel that you dry your feet with and stuff like that?
So knowing that there was a possibility of creek and or river crossings involved in the hike, the first thing I do is I wear a wool sock because it's going to absorb the moisture well and wick it away from your feet. So I come equipped with those, and because there was going to be a significant amount of bushwhacking involved in addition to the blue lining, I did have a pair of mid-height boots on, as opposed to like a mesh shoe that I would wear for blue lining if that's all we were doing. And I do dry off my feet. I have a towel with me, kind of an all-purpose towel, and I use it to dry off my feet. And it was, it was warm enough and windy enough that your feet don't stay wet all that long. If it was in the winter, I might I might even like switch socks out, after a crossing. But
definitely.
It was especially up on the ridge. It was a warmer day. We had a good time. Like I said, when you were keenly listening or not listening, there was a ton of bugs. It was actually in some spots, it was hard to take a photo without the bugs being in the way. So
those are the best pictures though, because you see those thousands of specks.
No, you don't. Those aren't the best pictures.
And people, I had a similar experience up on North Dome one time of where I took a selfie, and in the background you see all these little pixels of bugs, and it cannot accumulate to how horrible it was. It's just, there's those times of when you're like cold and you don't want to be at the viewpoint of the summit as long, but there's those times of the bugs and you're like, fuck this. And you like run down the mountain.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say we were running down the mountain, but I'll also say that, to another hiker, when they look at those photos and they see the bugs, they know exactly what was going on. They suffered with me, when you look at that photo, you can tell. But again, they weren't into desiccating human flesh. They were kind of more of an annoyance than anything else. And that was nice on the one hand. On the other hand, they were quite annoying.
Annoying.
But
yeah.
But I will say the waterfalls just made it, so worthwhile. It's just to go out there and do something like that is just, spectacular because, all the mountains we were on that day were mountains that we had both hiked before. The only new terrain was the one stream that we hiked down, and then with Danny Davis, it's when you go down the stream, he's just pointing out all this stuff, matter of fact, this is, how this happened. And he could tell the different transition areas that you and I would be oblivious to. Mm-hmm. And he'll point out something and it's like, okay, yeah, I see this pronounced change in the terrain. And then he explains to you, what is the result of just the glacial or ice sheet melting and retreating versus long-term stream bed activity and stream bank activity.
Yeah, the flow of the water and the lake effect and stuff like that, because we, that area, of course, had that fast flowing water banking around that area.
Yeah, well, all the Catskills did.
During one time.
During the big melt, and it's something that lasted, more than just a spring season. This is something that happened over.
Yeah, goddamn. Could you imagine that?
Hundreds of years. Yeah, the ice sheet was melting into glaciers, and then the glaciers melted and retreated and advanced, in the colder months. So, there was a lot going on for a long time, and it really etched away at the landscape. And there's all sorts of different activity around the Catskills. That's the remains of the Ice Age. It's pretty cool. That's why people will debate whether the Catskills are mountains or not, and it's really just a false debate. Who cares if you call it mountains or not mountains? The process by which the Catskills were formed and then molded and shaped is just very fascinating. And you can see it to this day. You go out there and you see these streams, the water still doing its work, shaping the terrain. It's just not something that generally happens over the course of a year. Although when you get one of those 100-year storms, then you see it in a week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the amount of destruction that occurs. And then when you drive along, you'll see some of these stream bank projects they do to stabilize the stream banks, and they'll get blown out in a 25 or 50-year storm.
Mm-hmm.
Water's very powerful. So we had a great hike. It was a lot of fun hooking up with Davis again. And we got a few more big hiking activities coming up.
Cool. Well, I look forward to it. I look forward to hearing about it. Unfortunately, I can't participate because I have so much shit going on.
Yeah, well,
within the next week, I have to work, and then I have to work again, and then we're going down to Hilton Head Island. So,
oh yeah, for how long?
7 days.
Good for you.
Just a rest. We'll rest.
Where are you staying when you go there?
We go to a place called Seaside Villas, right on the beach, Culligany Beach. We stay within, I'm pretty sure it's like a quarter of a mile within the plaza, so we can just walk and get happy hour and then go home and get to bed by 8:00.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, old piece of shit. But we're looking forward to it. It's been a while since we've been down there, so I want to hike so bad, but I don't have the time. But it's pretty crazy. So, well, good. I'm excited to hear your stories once again. Danny Davis needs to come back on and talk about geomorphology and stuff again, because you talked about hiking with the river waters, the water, stuff like that. It morphs our terrain and shows us, when we get flowing, those areas that are flowing, you're just like, wow, the power that water has is unpredictable. It is like just, you cannot do anything to stop it. It's just insane.
Yeah, well, that's why, when you talk about a river or creek crossing, whether it's a river or a creek is really irrelevant to the velocity of the water that's flowing through it, because it could be 2 feet wide, and that's enough if you get knocked off your feet that you could drown in. So,
yeah, you're correct. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's something, you need to be careful when you're doing that, even when you're with somebody else. You have to expect the unexpected and proceed accordingly. So,
yeah. And good, once again, good suggestions on unpacking your pack, so you can once again dislodge that if you get swept down, so that doesn't anchor you down to get caught in between something. You get anchored once again down in the water, and you.
Yeah, actually, after we left Brett alone, and before we went to the start of our little bushwhack and blue line adventure, Danny went down one of the parking areas along the Esopus River proper and showed me some interesting stuff there ongoing with invasive species, as well as these huge, wooden strainers from fallen trees, and was giving me an account of how, I forget how many years ago, but it was like 10, 12, 15 years ago that a father tubing with his daughter through this area, she drowned in one of these strainers, got taken off her inner tube, and he tried to save her but couldn't. So water's dangerous, man. I'll tell you, I spent almost 20 years racing sailboats. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, we'll have to get your account on that. So
I don't think we have any sailors in the crowd. So
you might reach out to us if you do. So want to hear about it. So volunteer 3500 Club has their season out. We're going to be, Ted and I are going to hook up someone 10 time and do it. Slider Woodland Valley, probably. So Catskill Trail Crew, Catskill Mountains Club, Visitors Center, Jolly Rover Trail Crew, Friendly Mountain Fire Tower, all are looking for volunteers. We will have their link in the show notes. Also, a New York, New Jersey Trail Conference has some upcoming events. Correct.
Yeah. So I threw that in there because if you want to participate, and you should want to participate in some hiking related or outdoor related volunteer activities, but you don't know what to get involved in, just Google NYNJ upcoming events. It should give you a link to their webpage, and they got a whole list of upcoming events from trail maintenance to one of the things I saw on the list was they have a class coming up in the mechanics of moving those large rocks into place on trails. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I'm bringing this up, Instagram user by the name of Slain72, that's SIANN 72, sent me a somewhat cryptic Instagram message, but he wanted to point out that he joined AmeriCorps. I don't know what that is, but he asked me to mention it on the show. Slain72.
I think it's Scion. I don't know what it is.
Scion? Okay.
Scion.
Joins
I don't know.
AmeriCorps. Yeah. I don't know. It was an interesting message, but he asked me to mention it, so I'm mentioning it. Scion 72 AmeriCorps. COR. Okay.
Jesus.
I think I got that right. I'm sure I'll hear from him if I didn't.
That's Sean.
Sean?
Oh. Sean. He's somewhat, I don't know if he follows the show, but he kind of talks smack about the show. So
talks really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's Sean. He was on the show before we did winter gear, which was actually a very successful episode. So he's very highly knowledgeable in winter hiking and stuff in the Adirondacks and the Catskill. So it was a good time.
Okay. Well, whatever. He's joined AmeriCorps. I hope he enjoys.
Yeah, so get your stickers, send me a message, I'm going to send more to the Camp Catskill because unfortunately they've run out. I don't know how they have run out people.
Well, that's good.
Mountain weather forecast. Let's check that out and see what's going on this weekend. Do we have any? I don't think of anything significant happening this weekend. So I'm going to look at Bear Pen. That's a little bit too far west for everybody. That's a little bit, right? A little bit too far west.
Just go with Slide.
Slide is always Slide is always kind of like the top of the notch area. So Slide looks like Friday. Looks to be in the AM, 57, a high of 57, a low of 55, with a little bit of rain showers in the PM nighttime area. Looks like a accumulation of 1 inch of rain. Saturday looks to be sunny in the morning, but shifting over to a little bit of showers, a high of 61, but with the wind chill on Saturday night, looks to be a low of 23. So significant change in wind and temperature. Sunday, once again, we have a significant wind event happening. High of 39, a low of 19 degrees. That's pretty crazy for spring. It's not.
Wow.
And so we might see some snow Sunday night, a little bit up in the higher peak region.
Crazy.
Yeah. So once again, prepare for everything. I wouldn't say pack your spikes, but definitely pack your layers because you might need it up in the higher peaks on the late Saturday to Sunday night, whoever is backpacking and stuff.
Yeah, and pack your Hudson North cider because Stosh says it's packable in your pack. So just pack it. Yeah.
I got to start doing that. So, all right. So let's get on to our last set of sponsors and then we'll get to Ron, who's talking about the Borscht Belt.
And horror movies.
And horror movies. Yes, correct. So, sponsored by the horror movies, sponsored by the Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for all your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is here to help every hiker from beginner to seasoned pros. We have Catskill souvenir gifts and Catskill merchandise as well. Visit us online at campcatskill.co or in the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. Also embark on a transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders with free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, backpacking, and hiking, and even doing paddling. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, and healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit and ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply at anothersummit.org. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
So tonight, Ron MacCloskey joins us, and we're going to talk about his times in the Borscht Belt and also about his movie producing career and other stuff with the Borscht Belt era and such like that. So welcome to the show, Ron.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I really do enjoy talking about what I've accomplished, what I've done. And the only way for me to have that expand is to share that and let other people know what's going on.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you reaching out and stuff. I always love hearing these stories about the Borscht Belt times. We know a lot of people, know that within the podcast that I am fascinated with the Borscht Belt, that it was a huge time in Catskill mountain history that we've had, that we can just look back and be like, wow, this blossomed and this was huge in the era. And just the craziness of it is how it disappeared and just it vanished. And it's just, I'm very curious of different people and their different times in the Borscht Belt time and just what they experienced, because there wasn't one or two hotels. There was, I wouldn't even say, was there hundreds? Do you think? There was hundreds.
No, there were hundreds of hotels. There were boarding houses. There were bungalow colonies. So yeah, that whole area was just inundated with just different places to stay. And from what my research says, there's a lot of the Jewish population down in New York City. It was very congested. It was very bad health-wise as far as air and whatever. And they needed some place to go.
They escaped up here.
So a lot of doctors, and go there. I mean, I don't think they necessarily said exactly go to the Catskills, but they said you've got to get out of this area, to be able to extend your life.
Yeah. So how about you give, let's pause the Borscht Belt kind of like history. How about you give a little history, a little background about yourself first, and then we can skip on to stuff.
Well, I've always had a joy of entertaining and performing. And I started that as a young kid. I used to watch all the TV shows when I was younger, talk shows like Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas, Johnny Carson. And I just loved the comedians. I loved when they came on. I loved when they told all the jokes and the audience loved it. And most of the times those comics would sit down with the host, and the host would normally say, okay, where'd you get your start, or where'd you learn things? And they all said the Catskills. So I said, well, that's where I got to go. But I grew up loving Jerry Lewis, his films, anything he did. I'm a huge fan of his work. I understand he's a very complicated man, and unfortunately, on the personal side, he wasn't as loving as a lot of people thought. But on camera, oh boy, this guy was great. And part of his history includes the Catskills, but other comedians too. And I would, for hours, I would sit and watch, Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy, and go to movies and just be so enthralled by these performers and just say, boy, you know what? That's what I want to do. In fact, I'm surprised not everyone said, that's what I want to do. I mean, some people said they wanted to be a cop or an engineer or a fireman. Stash, what about you? Did you have dreams of growing up to do something special?
I've always wanted to be a professional athlete. I mean, I was always a big Michael Jordan fan and stuff like that in football, but I'd never, where I lived, I was never had the proper kind of training and stuff like that. And just all the city places beat the crap out of where I lived and stuff, so they never looked at me like that. But
I grew up in a sports house. My father was a professional baseball player. He was a pitcher in the minor leagues. And my brother came first, and he was a natural athlete, and he played everything. So thank God my father was happy and satisfied with my brother, so I could pursue whatever I wanted. Now, I wanted to pursue show business, but baseball is very, very close to my life, and I still watch it to this day. It's just a great game.
So how did that of course, that taught you to go into your background of like show business and stuff like that? What kind of like propelled that into show business? How did you get from being a kid and being like, fantasize about that and then going into show business?
Well, I'm a very proactive person. So, I know any of us can sit there and have a dream and just dream and just talk to themselves about it. But I always said, no, if you're going to do something, go, try to do this, try to get involved. So my senior year in high school, it was the month of April. I decided to go up to the Catskills. I didn't even know how to get there. I swear to God, this is true. I went to a Jewish deli. The owner took out a paper placemat, turned it over, and drew the directions, how to get up there. I later found out it was around 2 hours from my house. So I went up there. I went to like 4 or 5 hotels. I had my suit on. I had a clipboard and resumes. And they all smiled and they said, okay, don't call us. We'll call you. And as I'm leaving, I see this gigantic billboard that says Brown's Hotel is Jerry Lewis's favorite resort. I said, well, if I'm going to work anywhere, that's where I got to go. So I went in. I talked to a guy. His name was Roger Brooks. He was very nice. He says, wait here. He came back. He said, follow me. We walked all the way behind the reservation desk and the offices and the hallway and whatever. And we got to Lillian Brown's office. And Lillian and Charles Brown owned the resort. She talked to me for a couple minutes and just said to Roger, so what do you think? And Roger said, he'll be good. And that was it. So I got hired on the spot. I was so excited. It took a couple months before the summer season really started. But when I went up there, I remember that particular day was pouring rain. And Roger saw me. He said, okay, you have a driver's license? I said, yes. Okay, go park cars. So for 2 hours, I parked cars. Then I came back and said, can you handle suitcases up to everybody's room? And it's like I did everything in a 6-hour period. And I was loving it. I was just a kid in a candy store. And finally, he walked over to another guy and said, Jack, this is Ron. Ron, you're with Jack. And Jack said, Roger, I have my staff. No, he's on your staff. Now, if you ever went up to the Catskills, you would know there were certain people that kind of ran the hotel. Yes, there were owners, but there were people that really had the power, and Roger had the power. So if Roger said something's going to happen, it's going to happen. Anyway, make a long story short, I got lucky. The 4th person that Jack had hired never came up, so I was hired, and I was a teen counselor. Now, you got to understand what that means. A teen counselor.
Ron, how old were you? Like teens, of course. How old were you when?
18.
Oh, wow.
I was
18. This is where Ron tells us that the movie Dirty Dancing was modeled after him. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, no, Dirty Dancing. Well, let's pause for a second. But no, you're absolutely right. The woman that wrote Dirty Dancing actually worked at Grossinger's.
Yeah.
So she wrote that story. And now here's the sad part. By the time they finally filmed Dirty Dancing, which was, I think, the mid to late 80s, all the hotels were gone. So they had to go to North Carolina to shoot the movie, to substitute for the thing. And now here's the great thing about that. You ready for that? That movie then starred Jennifer Grey. Her husband was Joel Grey, who then also worked in the Catskills. His father was Mickey Katz, who also worked in the Catskills. So in that film, you ended up having 3 generations of Catskills.
All this little stuff like that. And you were 18 when you started this stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, I became a teen counselor. And what that meant, which is I was so lucky, I was a paid guest. As an employee, when you work for a hotel, you never ate in the main dining room. You never had the nice stuff. You were down at the bottom. But being a teen counselor, I ate in the main dining room. I played sports all day, danced with girls all night long to a rock band, and then had to go to every single show. It was amazing. It was an education I don't think I could have gotten anywhere else. And I saw everybody, Henny Youngman, Jackie Mason, Don Rickles, and of course, Jerry. Jerry came up every summer, and it was great.
Wow. So how did you segue from your first, I guess your first assignment was parking cars, and then you moved on to the glamour job of being a teen counselor. When did you go from there to getting on the stage and performing? Did you do that in the Catskills? Do a little stand up?
Sure. No.
Yes. So tell us about that. When, where?
Yeah, they had a nightclub called the Brown Derby. And the Brown Derby, they would have shows, 7 nights a week. But one night they would give it just to the employees. So I ended up being part of that. I started doing jokes and being the MC. But I had done that before that. I mean, when I was in high school, I was doing talent shows and stuff like that. And that's what I wanted to do. In fact, I was so lucky. There was a wonderful MC at Brown's Hotel called Bernie Miller. Bernie knew that I wanted to be a stand-up comic. And after every show, Bernie let me go backstage and meet the stars and talk to them. And it was just great. And it was funny. But the very last year I was up there, I met a guy who had a show, a vaudeville show, and he says, okay, come join us. So that's what I did. So I did that. We started in Massachusetts, went down to Florida. From Florida, then I got on the cruise ships. And again, I pursued everything. If an opportunity was there, I pursued it. So I was lucky, and it was great.
All right. So Ron, we're gonna back up a little bit because you said that you would do jokes on the employee night at the Brown Derby. And so I want you to go back in time and give us that joke that you knew every time you stood on stage and told that joke. It would get people to roar in laughter. What was your go-to joke?
Well, a roar with laughter. I don't know.
You're telling us you weren't that funny, Ron? I mean, come on. What was the go-to humor?
I was, but I always tried to be topical. I always tried to say about what was going on. And I was very influenced by impressionists. I do a lot of impressions. So I would do people like Peter Falk. Excuse me, ma'am, but I love those shoes. Where did you get those shoes? Or I would do Jimmy Cagney. You dirty rat. This is curtains. I've got a rod. It's a curtain rod. So stuff like that. And Ed Sullivan. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, right here. We have the Beatles. Let's have a big hand for the Beatles. So that's what I would do. I would do impressions and jokes and everything in between the acts. But as far as one joke, one thing that I could remember, it escapes me at this point.
No? Okay. So before I go to my next question, I just want to know if Stosh knows who Ed Sullivan was.
Of course. Comparing to my day and age, he's like the Jay Leno and stuff like that I'm not trying to
kind of
the 70s and 80s. He had his own talk show host.
Yeah, it was entertainment, variety. All right. So Ron, you're working as a teen counselor at the Browns Hotel, which was one of the larger establishments in the Catskills at the time. What were you getting
Tad or Ron, where was the Browns Hotel located? Like, where?
Good question. The exact name of the town was Loch Sheldrake. Loch stands for lake. And if you got on the 17, which is called the Quickway, and you went up to exit 100, that was Liberty, New York. And from 17, high up on the hill, kind of like the Emerald City from Wizard of Oz, you could see Grossinger's. Grossinger's was so big, it had its own post office, its own police force, its own airport. It was amazing. So you go up there, you get off the exit, then there's Route 52. You turn east, 5 miles down the road, boom. There you had Brown's Hotel.
Wow.
But yeah, Brown's Hotel was in the top 5. There was the Concord, Grossinger's, Neville, the Raleigh, and Brown's. I mean, it was very, very well deserved as far as being a great hotel.
Sorry to interrupt, Ted. I was very curious. I'm not familiar with.
That's fine. So, Ron, what were you making as an 18-year-old teen counselor at the Browns Hotel? What were you pulling in? 1,000 a week, 1,500, 2,000 a week? How much? Come on.
$100 a week plus tips, because you all got those tips. Everybody lived on those tips. But waiters made anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 a summer, and it was all cash.
Summer.
So they didn't have to report any of it for a whole summer. It was amazing the money he made. But you know what? Again, Tad and Stosh, I didn't care. I would have paid them, basically, was what I was doing. But at room and board, I could eat as much as I want. There was no prices on the menu. I had my bed. It was great. I met girls every week. I mean, you couldn't get a better job working in the Catskills. And it really was a great time.
So when you were doing this, how much did a brand new mid-size Ford or Chevy cost? Just to put you said a waiter would make $5,000 to $6,000 a summer. What could you go out and buy a midsize Ford or Chevy Ford for back then?
Oh, maybe 1,500 at the most or less.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Wow.
most of these guys were in college, so
Yeah.
that's where that money went. That meant money went, and they became doctors and lawyers. And
Mhm.
I mean, several people guests on my show. That's what they did. They became lawyers and doctors. And again, the experience was just wonderful. They had great memories and stories. And again, you went up there for the experience. You didn't go up there really to necessarily. But trust me, if I did not get a job there, I would not have ever been in the Catskills.
Really?
Yeah. So what brings it to an end for you? You're up there. You're living the dream as a.
Yeah, no, I did it on purpose. I decided 4 years was enough. I really treated Brown's Hotel as a college, and I felt 4 years was good. So I did 73 through 76. We actually had a graduation. We did
Oh, wow.
pomp and circumstances. We wore caps and gowns. The band that was there was also there last year. And I just had to, I mean, as much as I loved it, I just couldn't keep going back. I had to, I want to do the next thing and the next thing. So that's what I did. So I left. I went down to Florida, and again, through God's grace and luck, I ended up on cruise ships.
Wow.
And I did that for a while. And that was, well, again, it was very similar to the Catskills. Because when you think, and that's one of the reasons why the Catskills died, is because cruise ships were coming around. Airfare, it was very, they dropped all their prices. It was very affordable to go somewhere else instead of the Catskills. The younger generation didn't want to follow their parents and grandparents. So they moved on to other ways to go on vacation.
And then we're also getting to the point of where we start accepting the Jewish community to come to other places, and everybody's like, wow, these the Jewish can actually like spend a lot of money in places, so everybody's not putting up these no Jews allowed and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, but they can come to go to anywhere instead of these no places that we had up in upstate New York and stuff like that. But reading all these books and stuff that I've read, not experiencing the time, you're right. Air conditioning comes into play, cruise ships, airfare. People don't want to drive 2.5 hours to go up and to sit at a resort for a week. And the collapse was absolutely crazy of how fast it was and how just aggressive it was with the collapse of the Borscht Belt era. So it's just, it fascinates me.
Yeah, the other thing that hurt the Catskills too was the gambling, and they were, a lot of these hotels were pinning their hopes on that. They were, in the late 70s, early 80s, they were praying for gambling. But Atlantic City opened up, and then slowly but surely other hotels, and again, it just drained the market for that. So people found other ways to explore themselves, and a lot of the waiters, what they would do, they would spend 6 months of the year up in the mountains, and then 6 months of the year down in Florida, because a lot of that same clientele did both. They spent summers in Florida or the winters in Florida, and that's where they made the money. And then again, eventually, and a lot of the entertainers, they all went on cruise ships too. That's where the money was. So they ended up doing cruise ships. So yeah, it was remarkable how the shift happened. I think I was very lucky. I was there kind of at that tail end, which was the mid 70s of the great years of the Borscht Belt.
So Ron, you were late to the party, so to speak. But maybe you can give us some perspective on why it was during the heyday of the Borscht Belt. It was such a happening place. Why was it that it started off as just some farmers renting out rooms to people, over 100 years ago, and then these really lavish, modernistic hotels are built and rebuilt and expanded on, and just all these top-notch performers are cutting their teeth and coming back there. What was the chemistry that brought all that together, if you can?
Well, I think is the fact that, and I think Stash said it earlier, at one point Jews weren't allowed to go to many places. I mean, there were places that forbid blacks from going, places that forbid Jews from going. And little by little, these Jewish owners opened places up there and wanted to cater to those people, wanted to bring those people up. And they were hungry. They were hungry for a good time. They were hungry for entertainment and to enjoy themselves. And they were hungry to be with their own people and to enjoy themselves. And that's what they did. I mean, there's so many people differ on the years, but I would say from the mid 30s to the mid 60s, that was the core of the Catskills. I was there in the mid 70s, so yeah, I was at the tail end, but it was still going. Yeah, after that, it started to drop off, and it's just like anything else, unfortunately. Things come and go. They're not popular. I mean, that away, and then horror films and comedy and all that, and it never goes away. It's all variety shows, but they're not around anymore. I mean, if I had a chance to get on television, I would pitch them.
I think we lost Ron.
Yeah,
Ron faded out like the Borscht Belt did.
This is low.
We got Ron. He's all locked up on camera here. Poor bad connection.
He's going to try. Luckily, I can edit this out.
Okay, so I won't give the running narration.
Ron, we kind of lost connection there, so let's skip ahead and we'll talk about your show, Remembering the Catskills. What is that? Can you connect us with that?
Sure. I ended up getting my own national TV show called Classic Movies with Ron MacCloskey. It was on a local station here in Edison, New Jersey, but it was broadcast all across the country. And we would show old public domain films, and then I would have a guest on. And I did that for about 6 or 7 years. And one film that was coming up was called Road to Utopia, which is an old Bob Hope Bing Crosby film, and it was public domain. And the guy that I worked for in the Catskills, Jack Weber, lives in Cherry Hill, and I asked him to be a guest on my show. So he came up, we taped the show, it was great. And I said, Jack, don't go anywhere, stay there. I said, while you're here, let's talk all about the Catskills. So we did, and we made that the pilot. I called it Remembering the Catskills, and I pitched it to different stations, and I was picked up by JLTV now for 3 years. The first season, the entire first season, is now on DVD. You can go to Amazon or Walmart or Barnes & Noble and get your own copy, and it's great. I've been able to talk to wonderful people that all had their own experiences, from performers to waiters to people where their fathers were up there. I talked to Cousin Brucey. Stash, you know who Cousin Brucey is?
I do not.
Tad, how about you?
I don't have a Cousin Brucey, so it doesn't sound like he's related to me.
Well, Cousin Brucey's been on the radio for like 50 years.
Wow.
He was originally in New York City. He was there when the Beatles came, and somehow he picked up the saying, "Hey, cousin, how you doing? What song do you want to hear?" And he called everybody cousin. So he's still on the radio. He's on ABC radio, which is all across the country every Saturday night. And he plays an oldies show. They plays the 60s and 70s. So he started out in the Catskills. Talked to him, and then I talked to Elaine Grossinger. She's the daughter of Jenny Grossinger. And Jenny's the one that really got the Grossingers on the map, and everybody started going up there. So, yeah. So JLTV picked it up, said, great, I love this. Let's do it. So, yeah. So we're now shooting season 2, and then we're going to go to season 3. I've had Paul Reiser on the show. Paul Reiser was from Mad About You, and he was up there. And I talked to Julie Budd, who's a great singer. So, yeah, it's been great. It's great meeting I've learned so much about the Catskills. It's great.
Now, with this like production that you do and stuff like that, you have done more than this, correct? Like you've done like production with like movies and stuff?
Oh, yeah. I have had an eclectic career. I have so many interests in so many different things that I enjoy doing. I went to LA for 3 years to do stand-up comedy. And while I was there, I used to do Groucho Marx in my show. And a few of the comedians said, you ought to write a show about this. So I wrote a one-man show about Groucho. I did it first in LA, then came back to New York and did it there. During my entire lifetime, no matter what I did, whether comedy or not, I've always loved horror films, and I've always loved actors like Boris Karloff. And I met his daughter, Sarah Karloff, at a convention years ago and said, I really want to do a good documentary on your dad. And she smiled and said, okay, well, good luck. It took me 25 years, but I never gave up. And Eventually I did. It became a critically acclaimed award-winning movie. Came out in 2021. It's called Boris Karloff, The Man Behind the Monster. And again, it's available on DVD if anybody wants to buy it. But what an amazing man, an amazing actor. And unfortunately, some of you guys may not know who he was. Or do you know who he is?
But he was Frankenstein.
Well, he did, but much, much more than that.
Yeah, he was very versatile, and he wasn't. Some actors and actresses get typecast after their first performance or two, but I think his career kind of segued from one thing to another, or at least that's what I heard you say on an interview of yours I watched earlier today. So,
oh no, absolutely. He embraced being typecast. He felt that every actor is typecast. You know, if you're young, then you're typecast as being young. If you're a leading man, then you're typecast as that. If you're a villain, and so forth. But he embraced that, and here's the great thing about this man, if you can think about it, just as an actor, he was 44 before Frankenstein. I mean, most of us would have just given up by then.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he was going from movie to movie. He hardly could feed himself, but he believed in himself, and he had a passion, and he just wanted to act, and he did, and he just had and after that point, I mean, his life and his career turned around after Frankenstein, and he virtually never turned anything down. The man did radio, live television, television series like Wild Wild West, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., I Spy. He did variety shows. You ready for this? He premiered on Broadway, his very first Broadway show, in a play written just for him. Wow. Called Arsenic and Old Lace. And the story, I'll tell you real quickly, the story is about a murderer. His best friend is a plastic surgeon, so every time he murders somebody, he changes his face. And at one point in the play, they said, "Why'd you murder that last guy?" And he looked and said, "I killed him because he said I look like Boris Karloff." Now that gets a laugh if you're Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
No, and again, just a wonderful. I never had a chance to meet him, but just a very inspirational guy. Any actor out there that is trying to pursue acting, you should get this documentary. You really, I think, will learn a lot about the man and what he did.
Now, so before we move on from Boris Karloff, I understand you are the largest collector in the world of vintage Karloff and Frankenstein memorabilia. Is that true?
Yeah, I started when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
This was 1962. I got my first Frankenstein model. Back then, you had several things going on. Back in the early 60s, you had these monster movies on late night television. You had on the magazine stands famous monsters of filmland. And then you had the models in the toy stores. So I was wrapped up in all of it. I started getting it. And the key to me and the key to anybody else that's been out there is don't throw anything away. So that includes baseball cards or tricycles or Barbies or whatever. Just don't throw it away. And that's what I did. And the great thing about Frankenstein, every Halloween, there's a new Frankenstein. Every Halloween, somebody comes out with something different. And it's just great. It's just wonderful.
So what's the most unusual piece in your collection?
Well, when people say, what's my favorite piece, is I always say it's the last one I got. Because the last one I bought it because I liked it. And I really thought it was neat. But I'm telling you, there are scores of things. I mean, figures, dolls, books, record albums, puppets. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And some of these are just amazing. The detail they do on these things and the time they take. And, being friends with Sarah Karloff, I'm always aware of what's going on. She still comes up to New Jersey every single October, and she does this convention show. And so many people get a chance to talk to her and meet her, and they talk to her as if they're talking to her dad and just explain about how important he was to their lives. And he was.
And he still has a big following to this day?
He has a remarkable following to this day. I mean, when you think, there were certain actors that represented certain genres. You had Cagney representing the gangsters. You had Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly representing the musicals, and you had Karloff representing the horror film. And a lot of people pitted Karloff against Lugosi. Lugosi was Dracula, Karloff was Frankenstein, and in my mind, and I know this may piss off a lot of Lugosi fans, but to me, they're not even close. Not even. Karloff was so far ahead of Lugosi. Lugosi never really learned the English language. He always had that accent. As years went by, he had a sad life where he got caught up in drugs, and it was sad. They tried to pair him together in several films. Several films were great, but towards the ends of their career, it was sad to see how Bela went down as Karloff kept going up.
Wow, amazing. So, I mean, was this like one of the list of many people you met when you were younger in the Borscht Belt times? Like, who else did you meet when you were visiting up in the Borscht Belt or working, actually?
Well, I was very lucky. Like I said, because of being able to go backstage, I was able to meet a lot of these people that performed. Jackie Mason was one of my favorites. Just a funny man. He had a great thing about when you met him, and I thought this was great. When you met him, the very first time, he would always say, "Hey, how are you? What do you do?" So the first thing, he would put you off guard by saying he wants to know about you. What do you do? You're a bus driver. You do this. You do that. Great. And he would ask questions about you as opposed to talking about himself. And just wonderful. Alan King, wonderful comedian. And, some people are, I always try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. If I ever met someone and it didn't go well, or it wasn't a good experience, I would say, all right, so he's having a bad day. You can't expect celebrities or whoever they are to always be happy and funny and, whatever. I had a chance to meet Jerry several times. Every time I met him, he was fine with me. But, some people have had bad experiences meeting some people. And, I remember for a fact, I met Trump. I met Trump like 20 years ago.
Wow.
When he was, when he had his own TV show. He had a big, huge party, and it was great. He walked around, like he was the president 20 years ago. He had all these women around him and whatever. And, so it's
Nothing's
funny.
changed.
Yeah. So, like, with all this, you'd meeting all these famous people and then going backstage. Did you notice any unusual pre-show stuff like that with these Catskill performers? Did they have any usual, I would know some people would get like a little bit drunk and tipsy to be a little bit more on edge when they did their joking and stuff like that. But did you ever witness any of this and be like, wow, that's a little odd?
Right. Well, no, I never met anyone before a show. I always met the person after the show.
Okay.
So they were a little bit more relaxed, and fortunately most of the shows went well, so they weren't really upset about anything. But, it was a different time. I mean, I know like nowadays they have to have like red M&Ms, they have to have certain soda water, they have to have steak, they have to have eggs cooked. So that did not happen back in the 1970s. They had a small little dressing room with a mirror and a bathroom, and that was it. So they just, all they wanted to do is they wanted to put on a good show because, the Catskills audiences were, pretty, discerning on what they liked and they didn't like. In fact, I discovered a great wealth of material, I think about 12 to 24 audio tapes of people on stage in the Catskills. And again, I know you guys are not going to know this act at all, but they were called the Barry Sisters. They were sisters. They sang, and they were wonderful. They played every single hotel. But on this particular tape of them performing, they're talking, and all of a sudden, way in the back, I can't hear you. And then the audience is yelling, the mics are not working. Give me better sound. So it's great. I mean, these audiences were wonderful. And if they loved you, they loved you. And it was great to see how these performers went up. And let me tell you, too, a lot of these performers, they were all different backgrounds. They weren't just Jewish performers. You had black singers. You had Latin dance groups that were beautiful. People loved the dance groups. In fact, some of these hotels used to compete against each other with their dancers because they were so good. and they would have contests, usually one night of the week, where they would compete against each other. Of course, a lot of these hotels, they also competed against each other in softball and in basketball. And it was very competitive, and it was great. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
So with you being with Browns and stuff like that, did you ever hop around from like hotel, ever go to any of the other hotels and experience that sort of culture and stuff there?
Not as much as I wanted to, but I did. And again, thanks to this gentleman named Bernie Miller. He knew of other hotels that were having like talent nights and stuff like this. And he would say, come on, Ron, I'll take you over to the next hotel. So that's what we did. Once in a while, we would venture out. Most of the time, because again, this job really was 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You know, it really, you didn't have much time to go somewhere else. Or if you had time, then you had to do your laundry, or you had to do this or that. So you didn't have a lot of time to go to the other place. I wish I had, but I didn't do it as much as I wished I did.
Like, were your like experiences like, did any other people that you know went to like Grossinger's and Ellenville and stuff like that, the Neville? Like, what was their thoughts, your friends? Did you have any other friends go to those other places and like kind of like share stories about that?
Well, here's the funny thing. While you're doing it, while you're there, you don't. But now in this day and age of the internet, you find out there are dozens of groups of people that went to your hotel or went to other hotels, and you'd meet each other online and then talk about different, like there's this one girl named Barbara, I think Barbara Dordich. I didn't know who she was, but she was up there the same time I was there. So while you're there, you're not. While you're there, you're in what's going on. But then later on, you meet people and you find out different stories, and they knew the same people and the same experiences, whatever. So that was fun. But no, not while I was there. Same thing with the cruise ships. You know, while you're there, you're just doing your own thing and your own stuff. And then later on, you find out about different people and different, experiences that you had with other people.
That's awesome. It's just the diversity of all these different areas. And, you know, some were big, some were small. You know, you have the Neville, which was very elegant. Grossinger's was huge. It's just that there's so much diversity with the Borscht Belt. And then you go up north and more west, they were smaller. And it's so cool to hear. Like Browns, we haven't heard anybody yet. Our friend Steve Aaron was at the Neville. He was a photographer there at the Neville, and it was cool to hear his experience there. Of course, you know, because that was more of a more elegant place, smaller, right on the edge of Ellenville. So, you know, it didn't take you long to get up there from New York City. But just to hear all this different diversity is just fascinating to hear and just phenomenal.
Let me bring something up, because I think when I got cut off, I was talking about the museum. The Borscht Belt Museum is in Ellenville. And it's open now for the season. And I'm telling you, it's a wonderful place. It's a former bank building, and they have wonderful displays, and you'll meet so many people and learn so many stories about the Catskills and about that era and what went on. And it's wonderful. So if anybody gets a chance, I mean, the exact title is Catskills Borscht Belt Museum. It's in Ellenville, New York, and it's a wonderful place. And I highly recommend anyone that's interested in what we've been talking about tonight, that you should go there, and you'll find out much more about what I was talking about too.
And it's right across the street from Stewart's.
It is. And Andrew Jacobs, the president, has been on the show. Episode
great. Yeah. Well,
147.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, too, another gentleman, Alan Frischman, who is on the board of directors. He was a young kid, and he went to Woodstock with his mother the day after and picked up 1,000 pieces of memorabilia from Woodstock.
Wow.
Now, again, who would have thought? Who cares, right?
Yeah.
But it's amazing what they found and what they have now from Woodstock. Now, again, unfortunately, I never went to Woodstock, but I did go to the Pocono racetrack, which was about 2 or 3 years later, and it was identical to Woodstock. It poured rain. There were drugs everywhere. 1 or 2 women got naked. It was just a great experience. Here's the thing that pissed me off. The tickets was $11, and nobody was taking tickets. And I got angry. I said, you mean I spent $11 for nothing?
Wow.
But it was fun. It was fun.
So, Ron, we've had, as Stosh mentioned, a few people on the show to talk about the Borscht Belt era. And you just mentioned the museum in Ellenville.
Right.
And so you're somebody that has this, not only this intimate knowledge of the Borscht Belt era, you worked at the Browns, but you also have a perspective on, American comedy, American movies, different types of American movies. And what I want to know from you is, why should we care about the Borscht Belt era? What is its importance or significance in entertainment in America, comedy in America? Is it a big deal, or is it no deal at all that we had this thing called the Borscht Belt?
Well, I have always cared about history, no matter what it was. And entertainment history in particular has been very, very important to me. So someone like a Boris Karloff, I think that a generation of today can learn something by finding out about this man. Jerry Lewis, entertainers can find out and learn from this man. Same thing with this particular part of our history and part of our lives, the Borscht Belt. You can learn so much by finding out what came before them. And you'll find out kind of like the roots of what comedy is today or films are today by what came before. I mean, I'm sure film buffs will go on and on about Alfred Hitchcock. But if you don't then compare it to films that are made today, then, you lose something, I think, along the way. I think the appreciation is much more. I have been very fortunate that my Karloff film just last month played at the Film Forum. And I don't know if anybody is in the New York area, but the Film Forum is like the mecca for films that are so appreciated for what they have done in the past. And you can learn so much by watching films there. And again, places like Turner Classic Movies, you can learn so much by watching Gene Kelly and Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, Red Skelton, Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. Just funny. I've always believed funny is funny. Doesn't matter what age you are, but funny is funny. I defy anyone to watch Who's on First, done by Abbott and Costello, and not find themselves laughing. It's just great stuff. Unfortunately, I am not a huge fan of films of today. I mean, some are good, some are okay, but to me, they're missing something. They're some comic stars have been around for years, and I don't get it. I don't understand what the appeal is, but people do. People love these movies, love these stars, love the stories. But again, everybody has their own taste. Everyone, some people think Adam Sandler is the funniest guy in the last 20 years. Other people will look at Will Ferrell, thinks he's marvelous. But I don't know. For me, it's just a little bit different. There are some people that are good. Bill Murray, I've always loved Bill Murray. So he's in that class of just a guy that really puts out good movies year after year after year. So everyone's different. Like I'm sure you have actors or comics that you like that, may have been good. But like, for example, are you familiar with the show, The Amazing Mrs. Maisel?
It rings a bell.
Yeah, that was all about a female comedian. It was like kind of similar to Joan Rivers.
Okay.
But it was wonderfully done and great detail to the history. And one episode, it was on for, I think, 5 seasons. One episode was devoted just to the Catskills. And it was great to see their version of the Catskills.
Yeah.
And shows like that are just wonderful. You can get caught up. I personally love murder mysteries. So I will go on it like Poker Face. I don't know. You guys know about Poker Face?
No, this brings me to, you're going to tell us about Poker Face, and then I've got my last question for you.
Okay. So you want to know about Poker Face?
Yeah, tell us about Poker Face.
This woman has the ability to know if anyone's lying.
Huh.
It's great. That's it.
Sounds like my wife.
But that's the whole premise. She can tell if you're lying. And it's wonderful how they throw her into these situations. And it's great the way it's done, because what happens, it's done, and then you'll see what happens and how the person's murder. Then they go back in time, and then you see how she was in there during this murder, and then she figures out what happens and can tell by just actually talking to somebody and say, what's your name? Oh, Bobby. No, that's not it. Try again. I mean, it stars a woman named Natasha Leone, and she's wonderful. It's on Peacock, and it's called Poker Face. And guys, I'm telling you, it's wonderful, and it's a great murder mystery. To me, it's very similar to Columbo, because in Columbo you always knew, who murdered who and how, but the fun part was Columbo figuring it out.
Yep. What type of car did Columbo have? What was that? Do you remember?
I'm not too sure. Hold on a second. It was a French. Was it a Porsche? I don't know.
No, definitely wasn't a Porsche. No.
It was, and my dog. I love my dog, and I ate chili at this one diner every single week. It was a wonder. Where did you get those shoes? I love your shoes.
We can't see you, Ron. I'm assuming you've got your trench coat on right now.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
I do.
So, all right. So here with this is my last question, because I think we got a unique person on board tonight, Ron, who has a show called Classic Movies. And I want to know, because you already told us about Poker Face.
Right.
I want to know if this Friday night or Saturday night, if I wanted to sit down and watch the best classic horror movie, what should I queue up?
Karloff made several of them, and I would say one of the best was called The Black Room. And The Black Room, he plays twin brothers. Obviously, one good and one evil.
It's like Stash and I.
But the
acting,
right. But here's the thing, Tad. The acting is amazing, because in a way he plays three roles. So he plays the good guy and the bad guy. The bad guy murders the good guy and then pretends to be the good guy.
Gotcha.
And I'm telling you, it's great. And then another one's called The Body Snatcher. So The Body Snatcher and The Black Room with Boris Karloff. Obviously the first Frankenstein, yes, Bride of Frankenstein. In fact, Bride of Frankenstein the guys are celebrating their 90th anniversary. Came out in 1935. And some people call it the best horror film ever made, but just classic.
So the next rainy weekend that I can't go hiking, I need to queue up The Black Room.
Correct.
And then Body Snatcher.
Well, they all start with the letter B. So Black Room, Body Snatcher, Bride of Frankenstein.
Gotcha.
Impressive. Sounds good. So, Ron, do you have one last question? Do you have anybody to say who hasn't read up on the Borscht Belt era? Hasn't read up basically about what to do? With me to tell them, I just tell them, freaking do it, because it's absolutely fascinating. Can you, do you have the same thing, except a little bit less aggressive like me?
Well, no, if you're not, there's still a thing out there called the library. And these rooms are filled with books. And you should get a book.
Correct.
And read a book about the Borscht Belt. There have been several documentaries out there, and you definitely should do that. And of course, watch Dirty Dancing, because that's, it kind of touches on that, and it's a good presentation. But really, reading a book about the Borscht Belt, that's really the best way. Or if you can, thank God, with the internet, you can go, and I would go to YouTube and look up Ed Sullivan, who again had this great variety show for 25 years, and you'll see rock groups and comedians and jugglers and everything, and that'll give you a sense possibly of what the Borscht Belt was like in the heyday.
And that was the fascinating times that you have, that you can recall of your life, that you're just like, wow, what a time to be alive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I look back and I see these. I see these. I read about these, and I'm just like, man, just the pictures where there wasn't many pictures. There was more of kind of drawings and stuff like that. But just to hear about this, to hear about the heyday and how how people had fun, how people went up, everybody got together, everybody had big, huge dinner, stuff like that. And just to hear about this, it makes me smile, and it makes me like, wow, that this once existed in the Catskills, and how big it was. It just fascinates me. And the food, that's what Steve told me, Steve Aaron, one of the guys back in our days that we had on here for his photography and his times in the Borscht Belt. He just said the food was absolutely phenomenal. That's what they came up here for, was the food.
Well, I'll leave you with one story. You were absolutely right. And again, because you could order, and I'm serious now, you could order whatever you want, as much as you wanted. We used to have dessert contests. At my table, I used to challenge a kid, how many pieces of chocolate pie can you eat?
Impressive.
And they just kept serving them. Amazing. And the menus, not one menu had a price on it, because it was all included. It was all part of the deal. You could eat morning to night. In between, you had buffets, and it was good. There's a wonderful comic. I'll leave you this story, and he's great. If you get a chance, look him up. His name is Mal Z. Lawrence. And he does a routine where people go to the hotel, and at the end, they would take desserts and put them in their pockets. Put them in their pockets, put them in their pocketbooks. And the woman would say, why are you doing this? Why? No, I'm hungry, but not now. These are for later. For later. That was his routine. For later. So all these food, they would have for later. Funny stuff.
Wow. Once again, thank you for reaching out to me, Ron. And, I'm glad we could get you on the show to talk about this, because once again, I'm blown away by the Borscht Belt. And I always try to read more, try to dig deeper more into stuff. And I want more people that aren't familiar with the Borscht Belt to familiarize themselves with the Borscht Belt, because it was a huge time in not only Catskills history, but American culture history.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you can join us on the show. One last question, Ron. We do a thing called post-hike brews and bites. So if you go out to the Catskills, or you're reminiscing upon the Borscht Belt times, and you're over in the area, where do you like to go after doing your thing in the Catskills, and suggest to people to go and check out?
Well, unfortunately, these places are gone. But there were two places we used to go to all the time late at night. One was either a great pizza parlor called Alfonso's. He had great pizza. And the other one was the Station, which was an ice cream place. And you could just order whatever ice cream you wanted. And that's where we used to go. So we either went and got ice cream late at night, or go and get pizza.
That sounds, I'm not saying lame compared to the Borscht Belt, but that's kind of different. Lame. Go to the Borscht Belt and you get the top-notch steak and stuff like that, and then pizza and stuff. Just to be different, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, listen, every hotel had a coffee shop, but after eating, after getting an egg cream 500 times or whatever, you just want something different. So you go to a pizza place or an ice cream place.
That's nothing like a good slice, Stosh.
I gotta admit, after hiking, I just want something of maybe Stewart's, and have their bacon ranch pizza.
Well, there you go.
There you're right, Ron. You're right. So So thank you, Ron, for joining us tonight. Really, definitely appreciate it. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed us on the show. I'll have this all your stuff in the show notes. And all your, of course, your movie producing, your TV producing, stuff like that in the show notes. And once again, I want to give a big shout out to the monthly supporters and the monthly sponsors of the show. You keep us going, you keep us energized to do more. Thank you to everyone who's still listening. Ron joins us on episode 172. So it's absolutely fantastic that we are still going on, and we're still talking about the good old times in the Borscht Belt. So, Ron, have a good night, and let's keep in touch, and we'll chat in the future, sir.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Stosh. Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Ron.
Have a good night, sir.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.